It's time to continue working on the castle stable. There was still plenty left to do, starting with finishing the ground floor. The upper floor will serve a completely different purpose. Hi, I'm Jasper from CastleStube. Here we're building a huge Lego medieval castle brick by brick. In the last episode I started building this stable. Now it was time to integrate it even further into the castle. We are starting on the side where the horses will be kept. Each paddock needs an opening and a wooden fence to separate the individual stalls. I already had a plan for those fences in the last episode. Turns out it wasn't quite that simple. In fact, not as easy as expected became the running theme of this entire episode. Instead of using plates and tiles to represent wooden planks, I decided to use a snot technique instead. By placing these reddish brown 1 by 1 by 5 bricks horizontally, they become sturdy wooden beams. They might be a bit chunky, but I guess we'll have a very stable stable. If you look closely, you'll notice that I'm constantly swapping between brackets and modified bricks with studs on the side. The biggest challenge here was getting all the dimensions right. Brackets have a half plate offset, which is incredibly useful whenever you need to bring sections built in different directions back onto the same grid. Since everything is evolving at the same time, I'm also working on the surrounding walls and defining the final height of the ground floor. It simply gives me a much better feel for how all the different sections come together. This building is getting quite complex, I would say. Of course, I'm also adding tiles on top of the walls for modularity. You'll find out later why they are reddish brown. Just to be clear, every part of this castle is modular and thus full accessible. A little not so fun fact about reddish brown: many parts produced between 2007 and 2018 are known for being brittle brown. During that period, countless reddish brown elements were much more prone to cracking than Lego parts normally are. This headlight brick, for example, already has a crack, but I guess I can still use it. Unfortunately, this didn't just affect ordinary bricks. Even rare and expensive minifigures have been known to suffer from it. I've seen Reddit posts where collectors showed their Lord of the Ring minifigures cracking and falling apart. That really hurts to see. So, I'm finishing the ground floor walls of the stable using light bluish grey bricks. I also added a few arches, not just because they look nice, but also to provide more support for the floor above. Once again, I'm using plenty of snot technique, for example, together with the reddish brown cheese slopes. I think it's becoming more and more obvious why there's a transition to reddish brown here. Isn't it? And oh dear, I've just realized this ladder will actually lead nowhere. After workspace cleanup, but before we continue with the next floor, there are a few other things I want to work on first. First of all, here are a few more shots of the ground floor. I get asked quite often to show more close-ups of the final sections, so here you go. I also want to make some progress on the wall behind the stable. The plan is for my castle to have two distinct areas. One for the nobles and military and another for the rest of the citizens. For now, we are focusing on this small area directly behind the main gate. I'll simply call it the entrance area. At the moment, it only contains the stable and the tavern. Think of it as the airport transit zone of the castle. You're inside, but not really in. But now I just want to find out whether that wall actually fits behind the stable. And how do we find that out? Simply we start building it, at least until I'm confident everything fits together. I had already started building this wall at the outer wall of the barracks district, but then shifted my focus to the entrance area for a while. Now everything is slowly starting to come together. The stable in the front, the barracks behind the wall, and a gate separating these two. I can already imagine how amazing this will look once it's finished. Can you imagine it too? I've decided to remove the windows of the entrance area side of the wall. It just makes the nobles and military district a little more defensible. I'll also be adding another portcullis here, because this gate marks the entrance to the most heavily fortified district of the castle. If the outer defenses ever fail, this would be the final line of defense. These stairs leading up to the gatehouse tavern will also need a redesign. I've mentioned before that they won't be accessible once the wall is in place. Now that the idea of separate districts has evolved, I'm not even sure if I want these stairs to also provide access to the battlements anymore. Now that the gate and wall securing the upper district seem to fit perfectly behind the stable, it's time to continue working on the stable itself. The first step is adding the floor above the stable, and yeah, this is going to be a bit fiddly. I may even end up bending the rules ever so slightly by bending a few Lego parts just a tiny bit, all because of the 45-degree angle. The problem is the math. A 45-degree triangle simply can't have all three sides as whole numbers, so there's no way to create a perfect second connection point without making some sort of compromise. I bet you didn't sign up for math lessons when you subscribe to this channel, so I'll stop right here. But if you'd like to dive into some of the math behind Lego building, let me know in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, now might be a good time to fix that. The upper level will have a wooden floor. In fact, I'm planning to build almost the entire upper level out of wood. We already started that transition earlier in the video. And altogether it's consuming a surprisingly large amount of reddish brown plates. I'm mixing in some dark brown too, and am also adding plenty of open studs and jumper plates. They'll all be needed later. One thing I'll have to add later is these reddish brown triangular tiles. I don't own a single one at the moment, and I'll probably need at least 4 or 5 to finish everything off nicely. You know me, I don't like these visual gaps. I know I've never done this before, but I just dumped a pile of green and bright green pieces here. I think this would make a great spot for another flower bed, don't you think? Just to add a little more greenery to this part of the castle. The walls will be built a little different depending on which side you're looking at. The visible sides will get proper facades, so I'm leaving plenty of exposed studs. They'll be covered with tiles to create the look of wooden planks. I'm trying to make it look interesting but not too luxurious. After all, this will become a storehouse for supplies arriving at the castle. I'm leaving a large opening in one of the 45-degree walls. This is where supplies will be delivered into the castle. Since the upper floor is completely separated from the entrance area and can only be accessed through the castle wall that's separating the noble and military district, the valuable goods stay safely out of reach of unwanted visitors. How the supplies actually make it up there, well, you'll have to wait until the next episode to see it. To frame the delivery opening, I'm using brown arch elements and macaroni tiles. After trying lots of different approaches though, I'm still not completely happy with the final shape. But overall, I'm really happy with how the stable/storehouse building is turning out so far. I think it'll look great once the entire entrance area is filled with details. I already have some great ideas for adding even more details in future episodes, but we're not there yet. For now, it's time to fill the finished upper storehouse with some details. And finally, it's time for the crates and barrels to shine. Normally, they're just filler pieces I use to make a room or scene feel more alive, but this time they're actually the main attraction. And of course, we're also adding sacks and a few treasure chests into the mix. For now, the storehouse gets its first shipment, a few fruits and vegetables. But I'm pretty sure storing them like this in a big barrel isn't exactly realistic. But let's just go with it. The workers, however, will have to wait until next episode. Right now, they couldn't even get inside. We still need to build the entrance first. But before we continue with the castle wall that will eventually lead into the storehouse, I want to finish the building itself, which means it's roof time again. Even though I still haven't finished the barracks roof. This one is going to be interesting. As the roof has a rather unusual 5-sided footprint, the roof is going to be a bit of a challenge. I mean, not that any roof is not a challenge, but my plan is to build a gable roof over the square part of the building and a shed roof over the triangular section with a dormer above the delivery opening. And of course, the whole thing still has to be modular, so we can remove the roof and access the storehouse whenever we need to. While experimenting with the roof and building the lower frame, I quickly realized that there's no way this roof is going to be finished in this episode. But at least I have the rough layout figured out, so I can start refining the gable on the front of the building, right above the stable entrance. Here I'm relying on snot building techniques again and add some tiles as planks on top. I'm thinking about adding some kind of detail to the stable's front gable, but I haven't quite decided what yet. Do you have any ideas? I don't really want to add another window, and I don't think a clock would be historically accurate for the medieval period. I'm also adding another layer of bricks around the storehouse opening to make it stand out a little more. Now I'm curious what you think. Should I have built this as a half-timbered building instead of an all-wooden one? I can definitely see arguments for both approaches. Since I managed to get some missing parts just before the deadline for this episode, I'm heading back to the paddock to finally finish it. I now have these centered brackets, and they're absolutely perfect for this spot, both in terms of dimensions and the overall look. The paddock will also get a roof, which will eventually be connected to the roof of the main building. But roof will be next episode. Finally, I got these grilled tiles. Fascinating how different these metallic versions can look depending on when they were produced. Thumb badges have noticeably different colors. For the paddock gates, I'm using these larger grill bars in nougat. They have a great contrast to all the grey and brown, in my opinion. And do you remember me saying, I can still use this broken brittle brown piece? Guess which part decided to fall apart completely? Yep, you're right. It's that headlight piece from 10 minutes ago. So let me replace this one real quick. Have you ever lost a part to brittle brown? Let me know in the comments. I think this is only temporary, but for now I've added some tent plates and jumper plates to represent scattered hay. And it's finally time to add some life to the scene. We need a horse and another one, baby horse? And just one more horse. This stable hand is leading that horse into the stable. A mounted knight is patrolling the entrance area, keeping an eye on everyone coming and going. And over here, this lady with the flower has stopped for a little chat with the old musician. And folks, what can I say? That's it for today. We got a lot done in this episode, and hopefully I'll finally be able to finish the stable in the next one. Roofs always seem to be the most frustrating part, but that's not going to stop me. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts, ideas and suggestions in the comments. And if you'd like to follow the progress of this castle, consider subscribing so you don't miss future updates. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next time, this castle keeps growing, brick by brick.